with the Richmond Chamber of Commerce. And so I'm just going to kind of give you a little bit of information as we go through. But I first want to say a huge thanks to Cecile Schubert. She's our timekeeper for the evening. And then I want to thank Christy Middleton, who will be the moderator for tonight. And I want to say a huge thank you to EKU for allowing us to use this facility. So without them, we wouldn't be able to put this on tonight. So everybody knows what's going to happen up here. So if you have any questions throughout the evening, there are cards and pens right over there at the front table. And if you would take your question back and put it in the blue box, I would really appreciate that. And now we're going to get started, and you'll be able to see this. It will be actually on YouTube, and we'll be able to put that out for everybody to see and pass around and get it out to the people that that you may want to see it that weren't able to be here tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mindy, and good evening. I'm honored to be here to moderate this evening and to introduce each of our candidates to you. And thank you to all of you for being here and being an important part of this electoral process. It is always wonderful to see how engaged our local community is in every race that we have, and we appreciate you being here. As Mindy mentioned, we do have some structure to the evening, and as we've discussed with all our candidates, we will begin with allowing each candidate 1 minute to introduce themselves and share a little bit about why they are running and anything they would like to share with the audience. Then we will proceed with questions. We will designate if these are questions for the magistrates candidates or if they are for the jailer candidates, and in some cases they are questions that apply to all of you, and we will designate that as well. So we will go ahead and get things started on this snowy spring evening, which my meteorology friends tell me it's not sticking. It was too warm over the weekend, so we should all be able to make it home safely. But to keep us on schedule, we will go ahead and get started. Beginning with the introduction with our candidates for magistrate, and we remind you they are seated in alphabetical order, so if our candidates could designate which district they are looking to represent to help keep track of that would be helpful. And we will begin with Mr. Barger.
Good evening. I'm Roger Barger, the magistrate of District 2. I'm the sitting magistrate there now. It's my 4th term. I want to thank the Chamber for hosting this event. I want to thank my wife and my family for being here. My wife, Teresa, I appreciate their support. I thank all of you for being here to show interest in your county. I love Madison County. I've lived here for 60 years, and I'm interested in continuing to see it grow and prosper.
Mr. Barnes.
Hello, I'm Bruce Barnes. I've been in the county all my life, 47 years. Been on the same road all my life. Northern part of the county for District 2. Part of my process of running for magistrate is several concerns that I've been addressed to by a lot of people that come in contact with me is trash, illegal dumps, several things like that throughout our county that's being abused, and I want to try to get that taken care of through our part of our county. Thank you.
Mr. Bodkin.
Good evening. I'm Tom Botkin. I'm the 4th District Magistrate. I'm a retired United States Army officer. I was born and raised here in Madison County. I have a wife and 2 sons and 2 granddaughters and a grandson on the way, so we are tickled to death about that. In 2014, I ran for magistrate for one reason and for one reason only, and that was to help the people of the 4th District who did not have the ability to help themselves. As I went around and I campaigned, I met lots of folks, and most people that I met all had very simple requests that they needed and very simple things that they wanted, stuff that it didn't take a lot of money. They just wanted some assistance. They didn't know where to go. That was the reason that I ran for magistrate then. We've improved our county over the last 4 years, and that's the reason that I'm running for re-election now as the 4th District Magistrate.
Mr. Johnson.
Good evening. I would like to thank Mindy and the Chamber as well for orchestrating this event tonight, and thank you all for coming out. I am Scott Johnson. I'm your candidate for the Democratic ticket for the 2nd District Magistrate. I was born raised here, raised my family. I have 2 children. My wife works for the school system. I've been a banker for 21 years. I serve on 8 local boards. I've had the opportunity to meet many people in my time here in Madison County. Lots of concerns, just like everyone else. I want to make sure that we continue to thrive. There's so many opportunities still in this community that we haven't touched on yet. Going door to door, I hear many things of concern that haven't been addressed throughout our county, and meeting them through the different events and things that I attend. I want to make sure that I'm the voice for them. I want to be the person that makes sure those things are taken care of. Thank you.
Mr. King.
I'm Greg King, a lifelong resident in Madison County, a father of 6. My wife, LaDonna King, and I was magistrate from 2010 2014. I worked for the city of Richmond for 30 years, retired, and been a pastor for 23 years, King's Tabernacle Church, and 3 years on the Madison County Health Department Board. My reason to run is like everybody here, it's a job application. We put into work for the public of Madison County, the communities, and I want to enhance a lot of things as we started before. Some is like back in, but I'd like to see us enhance back some more programs and work better for the welfare of all the people of Madison County. And I represent the 4th District, and I'd appreciate your consideration.
Mr. O'Donnelly.
Thanks, Greg. My name is Shane O'Donnelly. I'm the Republican candidate for the 2nd Magistrate District. Again, I'd like to begin by thanking my fellow panelists. You know, it takes a lot of courage to throw your hat in the ring for public service. I'd also like to thank the participants in the audience and the organizers for helping put this together. I've been married for 17 years to the same wonderful woman. She's in the back. We've got a precocious 12-year-old son that is in 7th grade middle school right now. As far as training, I earned an undergraduate degree in healthcare administration, as well as a master's degree in public administration with an emphasis in health policy. I've spent the last 20 years of my professional career in public policy, whether I was working for the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, whether I was appointed by Governor Fletcher to run the Office of Health Policy, or in my recent capacity as the Director of Regulatory Affairs for UK Healthcare, which is the state's flagship academic medical center. So I believe my expertise in public policy, public financing, as well as my contacts and influence in state government and the federal government would serve my constituents well if I were to be elected.
Ms. Vesio.
Hi, I'm Debbie Vesio, and as well, I'd like to thank everybody here, the Chamber of Commerce and everything. I was raised in Madison County by Betty and Jim Masterson, who happens to be sitting in the back there. He's a retired professor from Eastern. I graduated from Central, and then also I went to Eastern. I have a bachelor's degree in mathematics and a master's degree in industrial technology. I've been employed at IBM for 36 years. I'm married to my husband, Steve, and I have 2 wonderful children and grandchildren. And I like to say that I'm here. I want to be a voice for the people, and I've spoken to several of those. And so, anyway, thank you.
Mr. Whitecamp.
Hi, I'm Donnie Whitecamp. I'd like to, thank the Chamber first for putting this forum together so we could all get to know one another. I'd like to thank all of you all for coming out. I know you all have busy schedules, but I appreciate you all coming out and listening to us. It shows you all care for Madison County. Tell you a little bit about myself. I was born and raised here. I'm proud to live in Madison County. A little bit more. I retired from the fire department after 20 years of service. I liked helping and serving people. It just came natural to me. So I'd like to become your 4th magistrate. I know I can serve the county with compassion, integrity, and common sense. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our candidates for magistrate. We will now begin with our candidates for jailer, beginning with Mr. Gregg.
My name is Steve Gregg. I'm a Republican candidate for jailer. My experience is I've been in law enforcement since 1978. Actually, I started in corrections in the 76. But I've been with the Winchester Police, the Richmond Police. I retired as a major with the Richmond Police in September of 2017. Between 1999 and 2003, I took a leave of absence from the police department, and I was border police commander in Kosovo during the war. And I'm running to make a difference in the jail because we have an opium problem, and we don't have any programs currently that we're doing at this time.
Mr. King?
My name's Everett King. I was born and raised here in Madison County. I'm married. I have 3 sons, 6 grandchildren. I worked at the Richmond Police Department for almost 15 years before being injured and forced to retire. I went back to school at Eastern Kentucky University, where I obtained a bachelor's degree in business in 2009. I was a post commander of the American Legion Post 12 here in Richmond, where we obtained a building. I wrote the business plan to get that and also sought the finance for it. What I'm wishing to do is actually create a new jail that will be beneficial to the residents of Madison County to ensure the security, and also institute programs that will actually work. Thank you.
Mr. Tussey.
My name's Steve Tussey. I'm born and raised in Madison County, out on the farm near Kirksville. Went to school at Kirksville and high school at Madison Central. I enjoyed a wonderful career with federal prison system, almost 28 years. Worked in, managed, and was a part of the federal prison system in 6 different locations all over the U.S., retired in the national office in D.C., and returned to my roots here in Madison County, where I love and enjoy living here, with my wife, Kathy, who's back here manning the table and helping me. I've remained active in corrections since I retired. I'm a consultant, and I do prison and jail inspections all over the U.S., and also I assist EKU in writing curriculum and instructing correctional type classes here at the school. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our candidates for jailer. I remind you that we will now begin with questions that have been submitted through the survey that was distributed by the Chamber. Some questions have already been delivered here from those in the audience. We will have an opportunity to take more of our audience questions a little bit later. We will start with an individual question for each candidate for magistrate. So you will each get a different question in this first round. Again, you will have 1 minute to answer. It's important for our candidates and audience to note that if there is a topic that another candidate answers that you would like to speak to later, please make a note of that, and we will have an opportunity for you to respond to any of the questions that another candidate gets directly to them later in our forum. So you will have an opportunity to speak to that as well. Our first question this evening will go to Mr. Barger, and it is, what are your proposals in filling the void left by the Bluegrass Army Depot? And we want to remind you to make sure that you speak into the mic. We know we're sharing a little bit just to make sure that we can get a clean audio feed for your remarks.
Well, for some time, everybody thinks it's a long way off, but it's getting closer all the time, and it's getting ready to come to a head as far as the population of the employees out there. The way it looks right now, we may have another 7, 8, 9 years left before it's completely done. The million-dollar question is how long will it take to clean the depot up before we could ever try to bring factories or whatever type of plants in there? And we can't answer that. That's up to the government. But we're very concerned and been having meetings for years now over what we can try to do to recruit people ahead of time that would come in here, but it's up to the government when they go out.
Mr. Barnes, how will the increase in the pension fund affect the county budget?
Well, when we get the increase of the pension, our county has to appropriate to make sure that those funds go in the correct orders that they need to be in, so that we can improve in the areas that are struggling the most. If that makes any sense to most people. These appropriated funds we've got to really, really sit down and put our mind to where they are best fitted.
Mr. Botkin, affordable senior housing, which is economically feasible, is important to the county. What are your plans, or would be your plans, to support housing goals?
Well, throughout our county, we have many seniors, and the fiscal court already supports the senior citizens in both Richmond and both in Brea with $10,000 each year. Housing for those and housing development for those are things that we need to look forward to the future as we have a growing population of seniors, of which I'm soon to be a part of and am a part of. So they tell me I'll be 60 in June. And we have to look for development facilities where that those can all be encompassed in one area. I think that it's good that if you can have a place that you live in where you can have assisted living facilities, where you can also have seniors that just live in buildings that may not need that, but yet can progress to assisted living, that can, again, to progress on to further medical care if they need it, such as out at Arcadia Cove.
Mr. Johnson, what is your understanding of how the county's budget is funded, and what would you do to change or improve that?
Well, I know there's several sources of funding that comes, from taxes to property, all the different areas that we get from the state. I mean, obviously, you always look for areas to improve, and I know that the current fiscal court has done a great job on taking the funds that they have and being able to spread them out. I know there's always opportunities to look for more opportunities to get grants to be able to increase areas that we are weakest in, to help with some of the areas that maybe not have the funds that they need. So, the budget is something that I've looked at some, but I know there's a lot more areas that I need to get more involved in to understand it, and I look forward to doing that whenever I take a seat. Thank you.
Mr. King, how is the county addressing the issue of economic growth, and how are the outcomes being monitored? Would you make any changes to that?
Well, the economic growth is we need always to look for more jobs. I look as a county or city or whatever state of government, there shouldn't be no need for increase of taxes or anything like that. If we manage the money right, then it would always be affordable to the people in Madison County. And that economic growth, we need to expand and try to work with their factories. And I know when I was in there before, we worked with Sherwin-Williams and gave them on taxes for 10 years to build that they could bring in a new paint structure into the facilities. We need to work with their factories to get the economic growth going, because they're actually property taxes. We can't get it all there because and we look at people, there's so many homes today, the county has growth. It's just expanding every day, and all that will help meet the needs itself.
Mr. O'Donnelly, understanding what the state constitution allows us to do as a county related to tax reform, what would you propose to do within those restrictions?
Well, I think it's premature to suggest that we actually need tax reform to meet our budgetary obligations. As was previously alluded to, the CSEP program is a huge portion of our budget. Our county budget is $73 million. That one federal Homeland Security grant is 61% of our county budget. So if you have anyone that watched the television or read the newspaper probably saw last week that we attacked Syria for using chemical weapons on their own population. So anyone that doesn't think that the federal government is going to put pressure on us to accelerate the destruction of those weapons is kidding themselves. So in order to offset those losses, we have to deliberately categorize, prioritize, and draft grant applications for all obtainable federal, state, and private foundation grants, including the Gates Foundation, the Ford Foundation, to offset those losses and allow us to continue providing vital services.
Mrs. Vesio, What role should the taxpayer money play to support private sector development, assuming the developments cannot be achieved otherwise? And how would you work to achieve goals in developing our private sector?
I tell you, to be honest with you, that was such a long question.
I could repeat it for you.
I apologize, guys.
What role should the taxpayer, we'll start with the first part. What role should the taxpayer play in supporting private sector development?
Well, at this point, private sector, I mean, to me, private sector should basically be supporting their own. I don't understand why our tax dollars should actually go to be spent towards that. I see tax dollars being spent towards repairing roads, keeping things with the various areas that we have there. I don't understand why we would even want to go to that route.
Thank you. Mr. Whitecamp, discuss some of the environmental and sustainability initiatives that you would support as a magistrate.
I'm sorry, one more time.
Discuss some of the environmental and sustainability initiatives you would support as a magistrate.
I think some of our water supply, there's been some question about that. I've talked to a few people. They seem to think that the water supply, we're in still good shape. We can supply about I think we use 7 million gallons a day. We're capable of putting out about 12 million. So as far as the water supply, I think we're in pretty good shape.
Thank you to all of our candidates for magistrates. You can take a breath for a little while as we turn the heat on our candidates for jailer with their individual questions. And first up, we start with Mr. Gregg. State statute says that the county may require county jail prisoners to reimburse the county for expenses incurred. Does Madison County do this, yes or no? And what are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts on that are there's going to be a whole lot of people that won't be able to pay their way on that. I know that some physical courts and have actually tacked fees on to the prisoners to pay for some of the things that they have and some of the fines and stuff. On the booking fees, I do charge, I can't remember what the amount is, but they do charge on the booking fee on each prisoner if they can, but I'm not sure exactly how much the amount is. I don't know if it's $10 or what, if they have it. If they don't have it, I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do right away.
Mr. King, when it comes to having well-trained and sufficient safety responders, do you feel that the programs available benefit the prisoner population as it relates to addressing the homeless and the drug problem?
As far as the training for the deputies?
The training for the deputies and the services available to our prison population.
At this current time, I believe that our deputies does not have enough training. I have spoke with the Department of Corrections Training Division out of Danville where our deputies are supposed to receive training. There's a lot of training programs that they have not received. Currently, I believe that they're receiving training from a certified trainer inside the facility. And in my opinion, we'd be better off to actually get the training from the Department of Corrections, any that is offered free of charge other than paying their salary to go there. And have a well-trained staff. And with that, it wouldn't cost us a penny as far as the taxpayers go, just paying the deputy's salary.
Mr. Tussey, if you are elected jailer, are there programs you would create or support to lessen the chances that inmates would recidivate or return into the system?
Absolutely. A huge problem with the jail, actually with all jails, is the recidivism rate. The rate right now is approximately 8 of every 10 inmates that goes out the door is going to come back or has already been there. It's costing the county a lot of money. That's what I call the revolving doors. The same inmate just keeps coming back over and over again. We can do a lot of things. We can institute drug addiction programs, work programs. We can work with the local employers for job placement. Anything that we do is the family counseling. There's so many programs, there's dozens of them that we could implement that would help reduce the recidivism rate. They could be successful people, get out on the street, get a job, support their family. It's a hardship on the families right now when these people go to jail, as they're still out there paying a house payment and trying to feed a family.
Thank you to all of our candidates for jailer. We have time for another round of individual questions for our candidates for magistrate. We begin again with Mr. Barger. What are your thoughts on the creation of a unified economic development team consisting of Madison County, the City of Richmond, and the City of Berea?
It's a good idea if we can all share in the money, but the way it is right now, someone mentioned a while ago about the factories, that we need to be helping our factories. The county has no factories to help. We don't draw any money off of these factories. They're all city, Berea and Richmond. That's one of our problems now. But I think all three of the entities needs to come together. It might not be in my lifetime, but I think we will be an urban county government before it's over to survive.
Mr. Barnes, what would be your goals to help balance growth, density, and affordability with neighborhood groups as a part of development decisions?
Is the question more, are you talking about in developments of like our subdivisions and streets and
in neighborhood developments?
Yes. Well, we need to. You look at these subdivisions that's already have been started, and we're doing a better job. Looks to me like the county now is doing a better job now than they was of making sure that when they start a development, it is micromanaged down to a science to make sure those lots are built and suited and organized in a good manner to finish that subdivision. In the past, they would start one and then they would stop one. So my idea of it is these developers that's out here, let them finish up with what they've got started before they go out and bust up another family farm or whatever to make them get with what they've already got going on.
Mr. Botkin, this question is in reference to pension reform. What ideas do you have concerning this issue that could include increased revenue or reduced spending? Or what other issues do you see could assist with pension reform if needed?
Pension reform as it applied to our counties, the legislators got together on the last day and they passed regulation that would allow us to grandfather in, if you will, pension reform. Pension reform, if it had just been passed straight to the county, would have been devastating to us. We were looking at coming up with over, close to, if not over, $1 million a year in addition to a pension, which we would have sustained that for a year or two. Ultimately, that would have broke our county. I think that with the phasing it in will allow us to meet those things. We have to continue to grow our county to seek that revenue. We have to attract new business. If you grow your tax base, you grow your revenue. You grow your revenue, you are able to support the pensions, not just pensions, salaries that need to be improved to retain people. All of those things, they all work together.
Mr. Johnson, the county's unemployment numbers range from 3.9 to 4.2%. How would you approach helping the county develop work-ready skills to ensure that businesses can find a workforce that qualifies for the jobs available?
Well, that's actually something that I know the Chamber, we've worked on very hard with the school system and got work ready already. So it's a matter of just instituting that and taking full advantage of it. You know, that's a problem most of the factories that come to all of our events is they can't find good workers. And it starts in high school of making sure those kids have the training and the opportunities. College isn't for everyone. Whether it's a trade skill they want to go into or whatever, you've got to make sure that they have those opportunities, and that starts with our school systems. I think between the city, the county, and even Berea, that we need to make sure that these things are instituted to help sustain the growth with the factories. If we don't have workers, the factories won't come. So, and then we've got to have workers for the ones we have, and they constantly have those turning over. So I just think it starts with as early as possible in the school systems. Thank you.
Mr. King, with 5 generations of workforce participants and residents here in our community, how do you plan to reach and communicate with all generations?
Well, the best way is to get out and talk with them all. As me, I got kids ranging from 12 to 34. So as looking at that, and I'm 51, and then the older generation as well, I pastor a church, I kind of deal with that already as reaching out to all the generations. We can't pass the burden to the younger people, and we can't expect the older people to take up all the slack for the younger. We need programs to, for the young people. I know as they had DARE programs in schools when I was at school, teaching kids about drugs and things, but I think that's educated them to get on more drugs, because the less education you have would be on that, but a kid wouldn't listen. And the thing I'm saying is to reach to all. It's hard to answer all this question just in a minute, but okay.
Go ahead, finish your statement.
As to reach all the generations, 5 generations, I'd be willing to work to not pass the burden to any of them.
Mr. O'Donnelly, what regulations can or should be passed to ensure compliance with deed restrictions in our county?
Well, that's a great question. Any regulation, it's only as strong as the teeth that are behind it in terms of penalties and punishment to stop the abuses of the regulation. Just like I work in the hospital sector, so if we have a bad actor in a hospital sector, they're putting their hospital license at risk, at risk of closure. So the same thing with deed restrictions. I'm not sure what type of penalties would be enough of a deterrent to stop the bad actors, but it's something to investigate.
Mrs. Vesio, would you be in support of discussing publicly the possibility of consolidating governments or government services with multiple services like planning and zoning, fire, law enforcement, etc.? Would you be in support of consolidating some of these?
Well, I think from the standpoint of actually, you would actually have to go out. But one thing I spoke with a volunteer fireman down in Kirksville the other day, and he had specifically talked about how he would like to see the volunteer group come together with the actual paid fire department here to figure out how they could go together to basically, like if one person needs to purchase a fire engine, then it works better. If you need 4 or 5 fire engines, you get a better deal on it, right? So they were definitely interested in seeing how they could work together with the other agencies. So.
Mr. Whitecamp, there are unfunded mandates that can cause financial challenges for counties. In what ways can we increase revenue to support providing these services for our residents that they have come to expect?
Well, there's been some talk about going to the commercial or putting in the hemp versus medical marijuana. I think you could, with all the tobacco gone, if you started with the hemp, I think that's a good way to raise a lot of money. You put a lot of farmers to work. I think that would create a lot of money. Now, there's a difference between the hemp and the medical marijuana. I don't agree with the medical marijuana, but the hemp, I think, would be a good place to start to raise some money.
Thank you again to our candidates for magistrate, and thank you to our audience and those who've submitted these great questions. Moving on to our questions for jailer. Mr. Gregg, In response to the jailer's responsibilities in terms of deputies, what issues do you feel would cause a jailer to remove jail personnel?
Drug paraphernalia, bringing drug paraphernalia into the jail or bringing drugs into the jail. Use of force. Anytime use of force is used, there needs to be documentation. And that's one thing that I would do if I was jailer. I would have each one of my people have a motion tablet and have documentation for making rounds, and they would be required to fill out use of force forms. And on any incident, there's all kinds of different things, not doing your job, sleeping on duty. I mean, I could go on and on. Thank you.
And Mr. King, state policy states that if the medical cost for a prisoner exceeds $2,000, the state must reimburse the county for that portion that exceeds it. To what degree do you feel that this satisfies the need in meeting the jail's budget?
As far as the refund goes?
Mm-hmm. Is that enough of a reimbursement? Is it working as structured?
Actually, medical cost right now is draining the county's budget. The high medical costs for the jail with the injuries, medical treatments, medicine, it's paying a heavy due right now in the county's budget. We need to figure out, as a jailer, I would probably check for local assets to see if we can get cheaper medical from our surrounding here in Madison County to take up some of the slack and maybe even save more money. I do believe that the medical cost right now with the $2,000, it does need to increase if we're not able to change anything inside the jail to save money.
Mr. Tussey, there are non-addictive, once-monthly treatments proven to prevent relapse in opioid-dependent patients like Vivitrol, coupled with counseling and detox that could be offered as part of exit procedures in jails across the state and country. Do you support the use of this treatment for inmates in Madison County?
Yes, I do. Absolutely. I support anything that's going to help that inmate stay out of jail and become a productive member of society. If it's a drug treatment or whatever the supplement is that's going to help them reduce their urge for drugs, get back out in the community and get a job and support their family, go through the drug treatment program. That's a real program. And so it's not just a 30-day or 60-day program. A real drug program is the minimum of 6 months to a year. And typically they need to be court-ordered programs. Self-induced or self-reliant programs, people just simply don't finish them. They start on them, they have good intentions, but if it's a court-ordered program, then of course they will have more motivation to finish those programs.
Thank you to our candidates for jailer. We will take a moment now to give each of our candidates an opportunity to respond to another candidate's question or comments if you would like to address those with the audience and for this program. And if you saw me shuffling cards, I'm not picking questions specifically, but just trying to make sure that you get a variety of opportunity. If a question was similar to one you already answered, I went to the next one in the stack. And thanks again for the wonderful questions submitted online and by our audience here today. So we will start with you, Mr. Barger. If there is anything that you would like to respond to from previous questions or discussion, you will again have 1 minute for your answer.
Got a couple. The one about the trash pickup. We have a solid waste department that's headed up by Scott Tussey. Does a fabulous job with what money he can get from our county and through state programs. We get some money, but there's just not enough money to put people out there to pick up all the trash and clean up all the dumps. It costs a lot of money to clean up a big dump site, big money that we have to ask the state to help us with. The other issue is one of them mentioned that we had a $73,000 budget, $73 million budget, I'm sorry. It's actually only about $30 million because $45 million of that is passed through money to the county from CSEPT. We don't keep that $45,000. It's spent to provide the buildings and the provisions that CSEPT runs.
Mr. Barnes, any response? Okay. Mr. Botkin, do you have any additional comments?
Yes, I would like to address the issue of unfunded mandates. There's only 3 ways to increase revenue to support unfunded mandates. That has to come in the form of increasing your tax base, by bringing in new businesses, by attracting new companies to come into Madison County. That brings in jobs, that increases the revenue that's brought into Madison County. The second way is through taxes, which nobody wants to increase taxes. If you bring in enough revenue, if you grow your economy enough, you'll bring in enough revenue to support not having new taxes. The last way to increase that is simply just to reduce services. You have to either eliminate services, or the absolute fastest way to put money back in your budget is to eliminate people. Nobody wants to cut jobs. There was a question about deed restrictions. Deed restrictions in Madison County are an absolute mess. Not that the restrictions are bad. The problem with deed restrictions is that there is no fast way to enforce deed restrictions. We do have a process. We do have a process that works. It's just slow.
Mr. Johnson, any additional comments?
The only thing I want to touch on is the Bluegrass Army Depot, whenever that's gone. As some of you may know, I've served on the soccer board here for 14 years. We have grown substantially. There's lots of opportunities, I think, not only for factories and growth out there, but there's a lot of land. We need land desperately. We have 1,300 soccer players, and I believe in building in the youth. That's our future. We got to keep that. Keeps those kids busy. Doesn't give those opportunities to get into bad stuff. If you keep them involved in our recreational activities in our county and our city, I need to see a better partnership between the county and city to make those things happen. And I know it's the government's land, and they'll tell us what we can do with it after the fact. But I think we need to start advocating for that now. We're out of space. We are on top of each other. Lake Reba is wore out. The soccer fields are in horrible shape. It's embarrassing when we have out of town teams come. They won't even come to us anymore, and so that's killing us. We have grown substantially in our soccer league, and I want to see that continue because it's such an important part of kids' lives to be involved. Thank you.
Mr. King, any additional remarks?
Well, to do with the aspect of the county is financially blessed is to look at what we have in it. We have 2 universities, we have 2 cities, and 1 county, and we have multiple resources. As we look and see is the jail problem, we look at something, an issue that the county's going to have to face, and the jailers ain't going to be able to take care of it without the physical court backing them up. And a thing that is my work ethic is, for me, is put those prisoners to work out in the community, cleaning the roadsides, these waste dumps that people dump. Take them out, work them. That will I can't even say the word, but anyway, they'll rehabilitate them. That'll give them something besides sitting in a jail cell. It's all these needs is the counties, and they're going to have to be addressed.
Mr. O'Donnelly, any additional remarks?
Sure, I'd like to quickly talk on the concept of a unified economic development team. As I understand it, if the City of Richmond, the City of Berea, and Madison County government were to pool their resources and influence to create an economic development team to enhance the attractiveness of the entire region to potential businesses and potential residents, as Mr. Bakken rightfully stated, that could grow the tax base. This is not a new concept. This has been done in Boyle County. This has been done in Warren County with Bowling Green and Russell Springs. Actually, the most famous example is Boone, Kenton, and Campbell County when they created the Triad Economic Development Team in 1987. They not only put their egos and autonomy aside in 3 counties, they did it in 46 incorporated cities. And since then, anyone that's driven through northern Kentucky can see that area is booming. They've added 670 business projects, 67,000 primary industry jobs, and $8 billion in economic investment into that region. There's no reason we can't do the same.
Mrs. Vesio, any additional remarks?
Just one is that I would like to see the county work better with Eastern Kentucky University in ways of using their students more to help us as far as getting work done. At Eastern, they have a co-op program, and it would be good to have those students involved in what we're doing. I know that there was a volunteer fire department that was basically about to go under, and now there are 52 volunteers there, and the majority of those are EKU students. So it would be good to go through and find other programs that way where we could use the students' help.
Mr. Whitecamp, any comments?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to address the drug epidemic. I've been to a seminar, and what we've figured out with that our educational process is starting way too late in life. We have to start training these kids or teaching these kids that drugs are bad when they're 6 or 7 years old. When you get to 12 and 14, they're already experimenting with drugs. So we have to get in here, and we have to get the parents and the teachers together when the kids are very young, because if you don't, they do find it out. But if we can get the education in there when we need it, it'll make a lot of difference. Thank you.
And our candidates for jailer, any of the questions or discussion earlier that you would like to comment on? We'll begin with Mr. Gregg.
Since I've run for office, I've pushed the substance abuse program. We need to start that right away. That's paid for by the Department of Corrections. And for any state inmate, you get $34 a day. Plus, if you're a member of the SAP program, you get an extra $9. And also, we're not applying for any grants. Floyd County received $330,000 grant in 2017, and that same grant's available right now. And there's no reason, it's called Second Chance Grant. There's no reason that our county shouldn't get $330,000 also. Thank you.
Mr. King.
Yes, I'd like to comment also about the drug treatments, Vivitrol, and the programs. A detox program has about a 70% failure rate. It's a 227-day program that occurs with that 70% failure rate. After 5 years, the 30% that do complete it, there's only a 15% that remains sober after 5 years. The Vivitrol program is being used in Ohio, and it is very highly effective. But then again, you're talking about the medical costs to pay for that. As far as the SAP programs and other programs, our current jail does not have any room. We are about 349 inmates in a 187-bed facility. There is no room to hold any rehab programs. That's why I'm pushing for a new facility where we not only wasting taxpayers' dollars by paying to house in other counties, but we can actually make money by housing other county inmates and to help pay for the jail itself.
Mr. Tessie, any additional comments?
Yes, I'd like to talk about the physical plane of the jail itself. We've all kind of dodged around it, and if you have a conversation on the street, it's the first thing that comes up is the overcrowding in the jail. And the short, easy answer is yes, we absolutely do need a new jail in Madison County. Current jail is 30 years old. Madison County has changed dramatically in the last 30 years. Look at how many schools we've built in the county in the last 30 years, and that's solely based on population growth. And we need to do the same thing for the jail. The jail population is around 400 in a 187-bed facility. No room for programs, training, and all the things that need to be incorporated into a new jail. In the interim, though, even if we decided today to build a new jail, we're 3 or 4 years away from having one that we can actually use. In the interim, we can do some things to reduce the crowding at the jail. One is temporary housing. There are units available that we could put near the jail. And yes, ma'am, I'll stop just in a moment.
Finish your sentence, please.
Okay. There are options for temporary housing that would alleviate some of the overcrowding, and we implement a lot of the programs for drug programs and work programs that will help the recidivism rate so that we don't have the revolving door and the people returning to jail.
Thank you all. Now, we have several questions that would be applicable to our candidates for magistrate and for jailer. So I will pose one question about an issue that overwhelmingly we got a significant number of questions from this audience and from the questions that were submitted prior. So this is one that you can answer a number of ways. There is great concern in our county and our citizens and our state on combating the drug epidemic, specifically with opioids. Some of the issues that voters would like to hear about are drug-related crime, how it contributes to overcrowding of jails, treatment options, including various facilities. How would you propose that our county tackle the drug epidemic? We'll start with you, Mr. Barger.
Well, I want to give the praises to Judge Taylor and Colleen Cheney, our deputy judge. They've been working on a program, a healing center that they are proposing. We have no idea if it'll pass and stay afloat, but they have done a remarkable job of trying to get this thing off the ground. It's a way to try to get these people into a program that maybe they won't come back. The problem in the jail, 90% of them are there because of drugs. Whether they pulled a knife and tried to rob you, it was because they wanted to rob you of $10 or $20 to get a fix. So it's still drug related. If they steal your TV, they're going to sell it for $10 or whatever they can get. We are in a mess with the jail. There is restrictions on what we can do with the people that are in jail as far as working them, because I work 2 of them at the Valley View Ferry. It's not an easy fix, and we're definitely working on it every day.
Mr. Barnes, same question on how you would address the drug epidemic.
Well, the drug epidemic is a like you said, a major crisis throughout everywhere. So if a person could come up with the perfect solution, we'd be way ahead of the game. But like Mr. Barger is stating, with the drug rehab or the facility to house these people that's got drug issues, I know with a person that's in my family that's dealing with drugs and has dealt with drugs, and I'm not ashamed to say that, because there's maybe a few people in this crowd that has people dealing with their families that's affected by drugs. And the people that's on drugs are not going to either receive this help unless they truly want to. And I'll be honest, I don't know the perfect answer to know what to do with them totally, other than be more forceful. Then, when they do get caught with drugs, be determined to make them pull their time. When they do have to get caught and they've got 30 days, make them pull that 30 days and dry them out and let them see the hard times of it. Now with the jail,
I think you're out of time there on that one.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Botkin, your thoughts on addressing the drug problem?
When we first got in office, Judge Taylor put together a jail task force. After studying that issue for a year, they came back to the magistrates in the physical court and said that you need to build a 600-bed jail expandable to 900 beds. Oh, by the way, that's going to cost you $50 million. I told the judge in our meetings, you do what you want to. I'm not signing my grandchildren up for a debt that we can't pay, that they can't pay. So what I think that we have to do for that, we have to look for an alternative way to cut down the people that's going into the jail. We have to see if we can rehab. We hope to make an announcement. Judd, hoping I'm not stealing the thunder back there. We hope to make an announcement within the next month that we intend to build some type of a rehab center. If we can divert people, and just to say this, any rehab center, any place, I don't care where it's at, if it's not faith-based, if it doesn't have counseling, and if it doesn't use Vivitrol, it's not going to work. So, I'll just wrap up by saying, those things, the jail, we need to build a new jail. Maybe that's an expansion. Maybe we compromise. A smaller rehab facility, a smaller jail.
Mr. Johnson, your thoughts on addressing the drug epidemic?
Well, as we all know, it is a huge epidemic in our community, and I've been to several events that have educated me on a lot of the things that's going on. I do think I support the healing center, rehab center that the current administration is working on. I think that's an opportunity to take advantage of some of the people that are involved in the situation. And Officer Purdy's working diligently with the school system, and I go back to the kids. We got to help educate our kids on this, because it starts out with just simple stuff, but then they end up with the hard stuff at the end. And I know it's a tough decision to put that in front of your children, because, as Mr. King said, it sometimes gives them the idea. But at the same time, reality is it's there whether we want to face it or not, and it's in the schools every day. My wife's in education, and I know for a fact, and it all begins with them, and they see it at home. So it's the home life and all the things tied to it. I think maybe there's some opportunities for some people that maybe aren't as severe reasons to be in jail, that maybe there's a house arrest. I know I've heard information about those type of programs to alleviate some of the jail inmates. So I'm out of time. Thank you.
Mr. King, your thoughts on this issue?
With the epidemic, it ain't going to go away. It's like things that happens that every generation faces. When it used to be just alcohol, it's a step further. And only time people's going to get help if they want help. You can't force it on nobody. You can't put them in rehab and try to make them get clean. They have to want it themselves. They have to see a desire inside themselves that they could be a better person. And if we don't teach the people with faith-based organizations, I wish the judges would send them to churches instead of jails. Then they could hear the truth and might have hope. But as we look and see, it's going to be the epidemic from now on, because everybody's going to be wanting it. And I'd want to support the law enforcement to get the big ones that's selling this stuff and making money off of it.
Mr. O'Donnell, your thoughts on addressing the drug problem?
Yeah, it's a great question. Last year in Madison County, we had over 1,000 drug-related indictments, which has exacerbated the county jail overpopulation problem. I think one thing that we can do as a community is look at alternatives to long-term incarceration, especially for these nonviolent, non-trafficking drug offenders. We can expand our capacity, enhance support to the misdemeanor drug courts. It's a fabulous 2-year program, and it's got a great track record for the graduates. We can reinstate our home incarceration program to allow these nonviolent, non-trafficking drug abusers to seek treatment in the community while under constant GPS monitoring and substance abuse testing to help aid them on a path to long-term sobriety. But all this costs money. 2 years ago, through 21st Century Cures grant, Congress authorized $1 billion towards opioid abuse detection and research. 3 weeks ago, Congress authorized $4 billion to be spent this year on the same topic. We need a sophisticated way to access those funds.
Mrs. Vesio, your thoughts on addressing our drug problem?
I think it's more of a prevention to be able to curb the epidemic. As Donnie had mentioned earlier, actually the children are learning younger and younger more about drugs, and you need to start there. We've been blessed with 2 wonderful daughters that we haven't gone down that path with. Now I have 2 young grandchildren, so I'm concerned and want to make sure that they understand about what we can do as far as prevention. I know Madison County has a Too Good for Drugs program that is funded through grants. However, that is basically grant funded. I'd like to figure out a way to fund those programs to keep them going within the county.
Mr. Whitecamp, your thoughts on fighting drugs in our county?
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to go back on what I started earlier, that it's education is where it starts. You got to get the parents involved. You got to get the teachers involved. We went to that seminar that we went to, and one of the older gentlemen stood up and said, well, I went to a party the other day, and they weren't drinking or anything. They were just passing around an electric cigarette. Well, he don't know. That's got hemp in it. People don't even know, and they don't realize how bad it's got. I've lost some family members. I've got one just got out of rehab. You all have to realize we have to get this when those people are young and beat it into their head that drugs are not the way.
Mr. Gregg, your thoughts on addressing the drug epidemic?
Well, first off, we can't wait 3 years. I think we need to start the substance abuse program right away, and it doesn't have to be done at the jail. It can be done at another location. It's paid for by the Department of Corrections. The Vital is part of the SAP program. And also, we could get with the judges. I know we got one back here in the back that's running to maybe do split sentencing on low-level felonies and misdemeanors to where they have to complete the program. And then on the last part of their sentencing, it's mandatory supervision. And if they violate that, then they'd end up back in jail. But we have to get started on this right away. I'm with the judge on that. We can't wait.
Mr. King, how would you like to see us address the drug epidemic?
As far as the, I guess, them spending time in jail and the programs and stuff, currently the jail has inmates in there that's been given 3, 4, sometimes 5 chances by the judge to attend these programs and get clean. But they quit the programs and they end up back in jail. And that's the same thing with a healing center or anything else. If they're on probation and they go to the healing center, then out of 300, if they put 300 people in the healing center, 210 of them is going to end up back in jail. So you've got 210 back in jail in a 187-bed facility. We need the new jail where we can institute the programs behind bars, the work programs behind bars, and that way we can have a 100% completion rate, increase the success rate of those programs, and, you know, the jail can pay for itself. You know, we got people saying, you know, it's going to cost taxpayers dollars, but the jail can pay for itself.
Mr. Tessie, your thoughts on addressing our drug problem?
I think our drug program, there's lots of things that we can do, and you've heard many of them. My personal feeling is that we need to grow our way out of it. And what I mean by that is the early childhood education, and that is K through 12. We need a curriculum. We need the right people to sit down and work with the Department of Education, create a curriculum, K through 12, where we build on. We begin in kindergarten and we build on it all the way through the 12th grade. It's the drugs, the local judicial system and how it works and what's going to happen if you get on drugs and if you play with drugs and all. But we really got to start with early childhood education. We start in kindergarten and we build on it all the way through high school.
Thank you all. If addressing the drug problem was the most requested topic on the questions, then jail overcrowding was a close second, and a number of your answers addressed that as well. So we covered a lot of these questions that were submitted with those comments, so thank you. As we pose a question again for each of our candidates to answer, and we will start to my left with Mr. Barger. This one is a very general, open question. What are your plans to make Madison County a more desirable place to live in, work in, or visit? What are your plans to make Madison County a more desirable place to live in, work in, or visit?
I think our administration that we have now has made our courthouse more friendly to the public. We're in the process of moving some of our offices to the annex to free up the courthouse for some remodeling and other things. But we brought a lot of our people together that's just office to office next door to each other, to where you don't have to run from one building to another to get a lot of the things done, which I think is a great improvement. I'm big on building these small parks for people to use in their communities, where you don't have to drive too far to get to a park after you get off work. Take a walk, walk your dog. We have a Whitehall Park. It's unbelievable that's in my district that we're providing now.
Mr. Barnes, what are your thoughts on improving Madison County where our citizens can live, work, and visit?
Well, I do agree with Mr. Barger. I think that the people that's in place now, they are improving the courthouse, the system to keep everything from being so spread out, more close knit, more friendly to people. Because a lot of times in this county, people's got an hour or 30 minutes to go get either pay their taxes or go get their cars licensed, and now they can be like a one-stop shop. So I totally agree with Mr. Barger on that. And I think other parts of our county, where I'm running in 2nd District, that's the first part of the county that people see when they come down 75. And I think we need to address our cleaning up a little bit more and make our county more shiny, more noticeable. Thank you.
Mr. Bakken, your ideas for improvement for our county.
All right, the absolute top priority for the 4th District and much of Madison County has to be the safe destruction of chemicals out at the depot. All right, we have 523 tons of the deadliest nerve agent known to man. An accident out there, we don't have to worry about half of our county's drug problem anymore, depending on the prevailing winds, just to be honest with you. That's top priority. Second priority for us has to be the combating on the drug war. We have to support our sheriff's department. We have to support our first responders. We have to give them tools, equipment, increase salaries for their people so that we can retain good people and not lose them over $1 an hour. We have to deal with our jail. I don't know how you're going to pay for a brand new jail. I've heard it over and over, but we may look at expanding our jail. We have to cut down the people that's in our jail through a rehab center. And last, let's use the tools that we already have. We've got an airport out there. We have economic development. We have site development in places already within our district where we can attract new businesses, grow our income, grow our tax base, and increase all the other things that we've talked about.
Mr. Johnson, your ideas on making Madison County a better place to live in, work in, or visit.
Well, as we all know, we do have the best place to live, work, and play. I want to, again, I go back to recreational type things and building in our youth. Elizabethtown, I know they get the money to support their sports facility, but the things they've done in that community is amazing. Just to be able to touch on that a little bit here in our community, to bring more people into our community to spend their money. Getting all A back this year with the partnership with East Carolina University was an awesome thing to bring those people back and shine. They spend their money when they're here. That helps us overall for everything. We have a great tourism. Lori does a great job with that, and she does the best to bring people to our community. Those people sometimes will move here. They see what we have to offer. We got to make it shine. I do agree with cleaning up the interstate exits. We go to a lot of communities and they're pristine. Ours needs a lot of work. There's growth. Even going down the bypass, cleaning up the appearance of that. We just need to really we have the wonderful, wonderful community. We just need to put the fine tune to spice it up a little more. Thank you.
Mr. King, your thoughts on improving our county?
The county is a beautiful county. I've lived in it all my life, and to improve it would just be to add to all the things that's already in place and to monitor it and to evaluate it and to see where you can enhance better programs, and not just as programs as talking about it, but putting it effective and bringing it to being. As the tax revenue base, the county does receive the lowest of all the tax base. The schools gets pretty much most of it, and the county runs on a low tax-based system. So to look and to enhance the employees and cause people to want to work the drug problems, to get people appreciating their counties. You drive on any road in this county, you'll see people don't appreciate it. They make it a garbage dump. And, any of them may clean it up and then right back garbage everywhere. So I say just enhance the beauty we have.
Mr. O'Donnell, your thoughts on improving how people live, work, and visit Madison County?
I'd like to be able to say, we can fix all this with a new water park or a new soccer field, but to me, the primary responsibility of government is to protect its citizens. And I'm only going to speak to my district, the northern part of the county. When it takes 20, 25, 30 minutes for an ambulance to arrive on the scene for a 911 call and someone's having a cardiac arrest, that's too late. When it takes 30 minutes for an hour for a sheriff's department or a state trooper to arrive on scene for an attempted break-in, that's too late. So until we can make our communities safe for all of our citizens, even if they don't live in the city of Richmond or the city of Berea, but live in more of or actually reside in the rural parts of the county, I'm not sure that I'd be in favor of dedicating our scarce resources to some of these other projects.
Mrs. Vesio, your thoughts on improving the county?
Well, I am in agreement as far as making sure that our sheriff's department has funds that they need to be able to protect us, because you want to make sure that you're living in a safe area there, as well as Lake Reba was mentioned there. It started out, it still is a very nice part, but I think we need to look at ways to expand that further so that we have more ball fields and that sort of thing. So again, from the standpoint of providing protection for the citizens, as well as taking care of our youth and letting them have a place to have fun and play.
Mr. Whitecamp, your thoughts on improvements to those who live in, work in, and visit Madison County?
Well, like some of them said down there earlier, tourism has a lot to do with it. It brings in a lot of money, and if we make it look good as they come into the county on the side of the interstates, get everything cleaned up. You know, you get these people that are coming in and they say, well, this looks like a nice place. You know, those people may even decide to move here. They brought up the emergency services. We have to keep them up to snuff. We're losing officers and firefighters every day because the payment's not where it needs to be. If you want to be safe, you have to take care of emergency services, and they'll take care of you.
Thank you to our candidates for magistrate. Similar theme, along the same lines for our candidates for jailer. In your role, how would you seek to improve the overall quality of life for Madison County?
As I go back to the substance abuse program, if you look at all the crimes in Madison County, the smaller crimes, from most of the small felonies on down, and I don't know how many times working at the police department, I hear people come in, my daughter's on the heroin and she's stealing everything I have, something's got to be done. If you get these treatment, everybody has someone in their family they know that's been on heroin or meth or anything else, but we've got to get the treatment right away and try to get these small crimes down, and we have to support our law enforcement to make sure they have enough people to do the job, because they get tied up on an overdose and that takes them forever. That's why it takes so long for an officer to get on the scene.
Thank you, Mr. Gregg. Mr. King, what are your thoughts on improvements to Madison County in your role?
What I'd like to see as a jailer in Madison County is that, number one, we have a secured facility. We just don't have drug addicts in the jail. We've got murderers, suspected murderers, and people that breaks in on other people's homes for home invasions and thefts. I do believe, though, that we need the rehab programs, but we need them behind the bars, because rehab out here doesn't work. With a 70% percent that quits the program 3 and 4 or 5 times, and the judge ends up having to put them in jail. That's why we have to have it behind the jail, behind the bars, to where it'll have a 100% completion rate. With a 100% completion rate, we can improve on the success rate. But we need our rehabs, we need our work programs, educational, life skill programs, everything behind the bars of the jail. That way we can secure the security for the people of Madison County. We can improve the quality of life by having them locked up, at the same time receiving treatment and programs and stuff behind the bars that can make them a better citizen.
And Mr. Tussey, your thoughts on improving our county?
I'd like to make full or more use of the inmate labor and enhancing the looks of the county, picking up the trash, cutting weeds, growing flowers. We could enhance the county in many places, certainly on our main tributaries and the roads coming in. Also at the airport, How many of you in the room know where the airport is? A good number. I'm on the airport board, and actually we're having an open house on April the 28th. Please come out and see us. We've got a wonderful airport, and there's lots of things that we could do out there to enhance the economic growth of the county.
Thank you all. We are very close to wrapping up our suggested time here. So if we're ready for closing remarks, each candidate will have 1 minute to give closing remarks. And we remind you, if you get to the end of your time, you can finish your sentence, but please wrap up as quickly as you can so we don't have to buzz you to get to the end of that. And we will begin with Mr. Barger.
Well, thank everybody for coming out. All I'm going to tell you is I'm not a politician, I'm a public servant. And when I took the office, that's exactly what I started out, and that's what I still am. From the time I owned my muffler shop for 26 years, I was serving the public. When I started work at 14, 15 years old mowing yards, I was serving the public. I'm still serving the public today. I'll do everything I can. And I want to answer about 4 questions real quick with a quick answer. The first one is emergency people can't be in everybody's front door. You got to pick where you live and realize that you're maybe farther away than somebody else to get them there. 60% of the tax base, over 60% goes to the schools. You give me that money, I'll build a jail tomorrow.
Mr. Barnes.
Well, like Mr. Barger, I want to thank everybody for coming out, because I know all these questions are important, or you wouldn't be asking them, and we appreciate that. I'm a farmer and a construction worker, so I understand a lot of the issues that's going on in this county, and you see different things. And if you give me the opportunity to be your second district magistrate, I'm going to use my abilities to try to work with you all every day and get out and address the issues that you all have got on a day-to-day basis. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Botkin, your closing thoughts.
All right. I would be glad to talk for hours on any of the questions that we've been asked today. A minute's just a lot of time to have to jam something in. Thank everyone for coming out. Thank the Chamber for putting this on. But what I really want to do is, over at my table is my wife, Karen. Please stand up so everyone can see you. My wife of 37 years allows me to work a full-time job at the Oconite Company, get off in the morning, run all day for the county, go home, sleep a few hours, and do it all over again. And I'm just going to tell you, some days I don't see her an hour a day. I thank you so much for everything that you allow me to do. I couldn't do it without your support. All of our physical court, everyone that we have right now, judge on down to all the magistrates, we all care about one thing: improving Madison County, making it a better, safer place to live, and we would all appreciate your vote on May 22nd.
Mr. Johnson, your closing thoughts.
Well, again, I too have been raised to be a public servant. I've volunteered many hours, countless, and have learned a lot about this county that you know everything about, that you've grown up and been raised in. And I know there's lots of opportunities. We have lots of strengths. We have lots of weaknesses. Watching and attending the meetings and watching most of them on TV, you learn a lot, and there's lots of areas that we can still improve on. Not trying to knock on anyone at all. We all have decisions to make. I just know that I would be a dedicated person that would be there. I attend things today. I will, whether I win this or don't. I'm still going to be Scott Johnson. I'm going to be the person that's going to be out there working hard to make sure this is a better county for all of us. And again, I go back to our youth. That's why I have 2 young children. I want to make sure this county continues to thrive. And then my grandchildren as well. It's a wonderful place. We wouldn't live here. That's why so many residents stay here and maybe work in another community, but they still want to live here because they know it's the best place to be. I know that I'd be a great servant for this county, and I would appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Mr. King, your closing remarks.
I appreciate all of y'all for being here tonight, and Chamber of Commerce putting us on. And, we've got great wealth here in the county. If it's all managed right, we can achieve great goals and great things. And, as a pastor, I've always been a public servant. Since the Lord saved me 28 years ago, He changed my life. And I say that to all these with drugs and problems, faith is one of the greatest things that people can have. And if you don't have faith in yourself, you can't achieve nothing. You lose hope. And, that's what we need is faith back in people. I'll be a magistrate caring, concerned for all the people of Madison County. I was before. I'll do it again. I'll work for you tirelessly. I'll do what I can to enhance and make our place better. I want a place where my kids can enjoy like I did, even though I was raised up in jail for 8 years when my dad was jailer and I was a kid. That was when the old jail was there.
Mr. O'Donnell, your closing remarks.
Again, I'd like to thank the Chamber for hosting this event, the moderators for their participation, and the audience for being a part of the election process, even on a day where the weather's so nasty. That said, I believe I bring a different skill set to the position, and I believe I have a new vision for the county to take us in a new direction. As I previously stated, I've got 20 years of public policy experience, a reputation as a creative problem solver, and a wealth of contacts at the state and federal level that could prove useful to the fiscal court. My wife and I love this community. That's why we planted roots here many years ago. And actually, at this stage of my life, I finally have the personal and professional bandwidth to dedicate the time necessary for public service. I'd like to assume this role as magistrate and hit the ground running to be your representative on the fiscal court. I'm taking this very seriously, and I humbly ask for your vote on May 22nd.
Mrs. Vesio, your closing remarks.
Well, actually, this is the first time I've ever ran for office, and I really want to say I'm having a wonderful time doing it because I'm actually getting out in the community and talking to new people and that sort of thing. As I've talked to various people out there, I've found that they're very good, hardworking people that love their community like I do, but they're also concerned with how their tax dollars are being spent. So I think as a magistrate, the first duty that comes is to make sure you represent the people of Madison County, whether they are Republican, Democrat, whatever, it doesn't matter. You're actually there to represent them and to make sure that their tax dollars are spent responsibly. Thank you.
Mr. Whitecamp, your final remarks.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. For the last 20 years, I've served the county as a firefighter. During that time, I've had a front row seat at local government. I've devoted my life to helping people and serving our county. Through my career at the Madison County Fire Department, I've worked with all emergency services, educated students in elementary school and fire safety, and I've traveled nearly every road in the county. Those who know me, those who don't, I'm the guy next door that'll give you the shirt off my back. I'm here to serve you. You can depend on me to serve the county with compassion, integrity, and common sense. Thank you all, and hope you vote for me as 4th District Magistrate.
Thank you to our candidates for magistrate. Now we will begin with the closing remarks for our candidates for jailer. We'll start with Mr. Gregg.
My mission, if I'm elected as jailer, is to provide a sanitary, safe, and secure environment where offenders who have been arrested, are awaiting judicial procedures, or have been convicted may take advantage of the rehabilitative programs that we have, including the SAP programs, substance abuse programs. If I'm elected, I will also seek every grant available, to any kind of grant available that will cut the cost down on helping our community to not have such a burden on this. I would also like to see the go to the iWeb system for the visitation, where the children can see their parents from their house. They can call in. The county actually makes money on it, and the system's installed, that they take a small fee of it, but I think it would work out well, especially in when the weather gets really bad. You know, if they want to visit their father online, they have that opportunity to do that. And I ask for your vote May 22nd. Thank you.
Mr. King, your closing remarks.
Well, thank you all for your questions tonight and for coming. As your jailer, my main concern is for the security and safety of the county. to ensure that everybody here can live in peace and under the protection that knowing that their jail is secure. I do believe in work programs for the inmates. I do believe it needs to be held behind a secured facility. I also believe in rehabs and life skill and educational programs. All of these we can obtain. The jail can pay for itself. Whether that people would like to believe it or not, you know, a healing center will have a 30% completion rate, and out of that, 15% remain sober after 5 years. So we're wasting money on a healing center that can go towards a jail where we can increase everything, including success rates. But as your jailer, that's what I'd be pushing.
Here, I have a unique opportunity to give something back to the county. I had the good fortune to have a career in corrections. 28 years in Bureau of Prisons. I've worked in facilities all over the U.S. of every size and every security level. The last 12 years as a consultant going into prisons all over the country and training the new staff. I would like to put that experience, my training, my expertise, and my 40 years of collecting colleagues and friends throughout the industry, I'd like to put that to work here in Madison County. I would appreciate your vote on May the 22nd, and thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you all. Let's have a round of applause for all of our candidates this week.